Social media, as we're going to present on, when we talk to a lot of our networks, they kind of run away from it. They're afraid of it. They say that's, for young people, we don't like to use it. And the next question is, why do we have the same people coming to our events? Why do we have the same people at all of our things that we're doing? So what we're hoping is that we expose some of the myths of social media, who's using it, how do they use it. We can give you some tools on how do you engage with your network over social media, how do you get new audiences through social media, how do you talk about the great things that you're all doing. A lot of times we talk to networks and they're doing these great things, but they don't know how to put it out there or publicize the fact that these great things are going on. So we're going to talk to you about that as well and see what's the best method to do things. First question I'm just throwing out there for everyone is, what is your single biggest challenge as a network leader? I know you probably have millions of them, but feel free to just throw some out.
Reaching different age demographics and regional population demographics.
Okay, so age demographics and demographic populations.
Just getting the emails onto a Facebook page.
So just the technology piece of how do you take this email and get it either on Facebook, Twitter, that type of thing.
Knowing what your network is interested in.
Okay. Knowing what your network is interested in. Geography. So by that you mean where's everybody located? How do we reach them? How do we get to a central location that works for everybody?
Recruiting new Bruins in the area.
Okay. Recruiting new Bruins in the area. Sorry, Brandon.
Driving momentum.
Driving momentum. That's a good one.
Getting our members to participate as board members.
Getting members to participate as board members. So not just showing up for a game watch or showing up for something like that, but being more involved and engaged.
Yes.
So what we hope to do is to take a lot of these things and show you how you can use social media and different platforms to engage with your network, but do a lot of those things that you guys listed up there. Next question, and this is big with a lot of people that we talk to. What are your concerns or questions regarding social media? So what issues do you have besides, I don't want to use it because I hate it? What other things do people have?
Knowing who uses what.
Who uses what? So am I an
do
Instagram
people
person?
use Twitter?
Right.
Do they use Facebook? Do they use all the above?
The hassle of the multiple ones. I mean, how do we get it onto LinkedIn and Facebook, and it has to be formatted differently, and it takes like an hour to go through all of them.
And I know another one is what's a hashtag, because we just went through that outside. How do you use a hashtag?
Finding a balance between what's too much communication and not enough.
Perfect. So how do you not oversaturate someone so that they're getting a Facebook message every 30 minutes? How do you do it so that it's insightful and people can get information, yes, but you're not to the point where when they get it, they either don't pay attention to it or just don't respond or unsubscribe?
Similar along that line is that if you have one event and that you're wanting to promote for, and your group is part of the 3 different social medias, how do you not bombard them with the same information?
That's good, and we'll go through that towards the end. But basically, how do you know which platform to use for which kind of message? So marketing the event, promoting the event, showing people at the event, thanking people afterwards that have come to the event, which different platform to use for each of those. Is that,
How do you get people who are maybe afraid of or adverse to social media to engage so that they know what's going on and they're comfortable with the platform?
and that's huge. How do you get people who aren't comfortable or don't want to get comfortable using social media to the point where they are comfortable using it, if that's possible? Some people just aren't going to use it and you have to accept it.
I would say growing your entire social media base. So how do you get more followers on Twitter? How do you get more fans to your Facebook page? How do you get more people to follow you on Instagram? I think that people or alumni are out there, but I think it's a matter of how do we kind of get them to follow us and, be a part of our network, our social network.
Without, and a lot of that is some people don't want to subscribe to the network because of privacy. They feel like if I join this group or page, and Brandy will explain a lot of that later, then you can look at their pictures and their private information. So how do you get people comfortable with subscribing to a group and not being worried about privacy or those types of issues?
I can, you know, Las Vegas we're 6 months old. One of the first things we did was form a Facebook group. And it was really exciting at first. Oh, we got 25, we got 50, we got 75, we got 100. And it just seems like we've hit a wall, you know, with Facebook, where we can't get past getting 10 to 15 people from the Facebook group. So I was wondering how to get more people to join the Facebook group, how to get more people to respond to Facebook event invites, and what other things should we be doing in addition to Facebook?
So I think that's kind of what you hit on earlier, Spencer, about driving momentum. Just generally, how do you keep momentum going?
Sort of along the privacy issue, the internal versus the external messages. So we've got events and communications that are really just for our members, invite only. And then there's some messages that can go out to the greater universe. So trying to figure out the right mechanism for sending the external versus the internal and what the messages are. And also keeping that sense of privacy for those who want it.
Sort of along your lines of when to use the things from a timeline perspective, it feels like timelines are compressed. Because now people use social media, so you don't invite out a month or 6 weeks, you invite 10 days out. So how do you use social media from a timeline perspective in order to have a good event, and when do you do, you know, things?
And part of that is what we were talking about in the other session of having a newsletter, as opposed to sending out something for every single event, having a newsletter that, you know, captures everything, and then doing things periodically to keep people updated when things are going on.
So our Facebook is basically closed to just administrative rights, but our LinkedIn is open to everyone who wants to post like job openings and stuff. But I don't know if that's smart, because how do we monitor what gets posted?
And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about as well, is what types of messages do you want? You know, when you open a Facebook group, sometimes some people will post job postings, which, you know, may be good, but then may not be the purpose of your post. Other people post pyramid schemes, which definitely shouldn't be on there. So those are the different things that we'll talk about. What should you have on your pages? What do you consider in the same vein of the message of UCLA, as opposed to what's more self-serving for people? Right now, just as an individual, how many of you currently are on any form of social media?
As yourselves.
Right, just as yourself. So,
Good.
just everybody. Now, as a network, even if there's 2 or 3 of you here from the same network, how many of your networks are on some form of social media? So, some facts about social media, just to kind of start us out here. Almost 3/4 of the online adults use social media. So, does that surprise most of you, or most of that seems kind of consistent?
Judging by this room, you guys are beating that already.
Right.
That's one reason to be there, right?
And then millennials spend 18 hours a day consuming media, and 18% of that time is on social networking sites.
How do you do anything if 6 hours a day?
They're always on their phones, they're in front of TVs,
Right.
this is their world. So 3 hours a day, they're consuming social media.
Right.
How many people are trying to find younger folks?
No, we don't need any more.
No one?
So if you are trying to get a younger crowd or younger people engaged and involved, and you're not on social media, you're missing a big part of your audience right there. Okay, we'll go into some stories of. Do you have a question?
Assuming they sleep 8 hours a day, that's more hours than you're in a day, and they're supposed to be working too, I assume, they're working hours. So their bosses are paying them to get on social media, is that what it comes down to?
Yeah, but if you're listening to if you're listening to Pandora while you're on your phone and you're watching TV, that 1 hour is now 3 hours of social media. They do that all the time.
So just to go into some network stories, I know Zai's here, so I'd like Zai to kind of talk about DC Bruins, their strategy for when they're advertising events, before an event, and during an event. Zai, you want to kind of take it away?
Like
I'll walk out to you, don't worry about it.
I mean, I'm pretty loud. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay, so like, we use a couple social media platforms, Facebook being our primary one, but we also use, we use the EA mailer system. We also have our own sort of newsletter that we've been using before EA mailer came along, so we are still in the transitioning over, and we have very unique issues in terms of like, people are in and out of DC all the time. People are in DC for a conference, they just want to know where the game is. People are there for an internship, people are there for grad school, whatever. So we have to rely on social media and multiple platforms. Like, so the big thing with social media is to take the information, meet people where they are. So a lot of people on Facebook, some people are on Twitter, a lot of people use email, and someone else mentioned earlier, like, you know, you're advertising an event 6 weeks out, 4 weeks out. Like, I'm taking notes because I'm like, oh, we need to advertise more in advance to get older Bruins. But for us, like, a lot of what we do is, Kenny mentioned, like, sending out a newsletter, linking to our Facebook events, and then, you know, constantly setting up like timed reminders of our Facebook events, coming from different angles sometimes, but sometimes they're a little repetitive, coming out at different times of day, sort of changing the language a little bit. Sometimes if we have a game watch and, you know, we're doing well, like in this one, we'll take a photo, and if it looks really good, we'll send it, post it and be like, you know, Bruins are awesome, we're having a good time, you know, this is our bar. Having a consistent place also helps. But yeah, following up, trying to get pictures to demonstrate that we're having a good time with other Bruins, and also advertising ahead of time and reminding people like right before the event too. Like, especially millennials, like, you know, if you told them about something 6 weeks ago, they're not gonna remember. Like, so you probably should tell them like 2 weeks out, 1 week out, a couple days before, you know, the day before. Especially with on the East Coast, we have a really hard time with some of our really bad football and basketball times. You know, like 10 p.m. on a Friday is really tough, or on a Saturday is really tough to get people to go downtown and not go do their other plans or to stay in. So we have to constantly remind people of our events, and the way we try not to bore them is by having a lot of events. So we have usually like about 6 to 8 events per month, but they're generally a lot smaller, and so we can alternate between the things. Or we'll advertise things that the National Alumni Association is putting on, like Dinner for 12 Strangers. We'll say like, hey, don't forget to sign up to be a host for Dinner for 12 Strangers. Even though we're not running Dinner for 12 Strangers, we can also cross-pollinate that. Or we go to the UCLA Alumni page and be like, oh look, they're featuring, you know, they're featuring something that President Napolitano said. Like, people in DC are generally very interested in former Secretary Napolitano, so we might put something like that. Or you know, we'll look at other, you know, yay, UCLA did really well in US News Report. Like, we'll put things that are very positive about UCLA out there, and there's always news coming out about it. So that's how we try not to bore people, so you don't have the same thing being advertised all the way through. Okay.
How do you do a reminder for people? Do you just post a new event, or do you post something on the group page for Facebook?
Can you want me to go into like the difference between a page and a group, or
No, we'll go into that bit.
Randy will go into that bit.
Okay, I'll leave that. So we use a page. We migrated from a group to a page setting, and one of the advantages of the page setting is like our page. If you're invited to our event, you were invited by UCLA Alumni of Washington DC, and that we are the host of the event. But we can also just link to our event that's already created and be like, you know, here, don't forget about the football game this Saturday, and just relink to the same event. We don't have to create a new event, and we don't even have to link to the event sometimes. We'll just, you know, we'll just say a blurb like, hey, you know, it's at 4 this weekend, you know.
Okay.
So, do you do any programming outside of the DC area? Do you actually go into the Northern Virginia suburbs or up to somewhere in Maryland?
We've been exploring with that. We've had some mixed things. The problem is in DC, there's a lot of people in the center, and people who live in the city don't have cars a lot of the time, so it's really hard. So we try to make sure things are metro accessible, or if there is something off metro, that there's like a carpool situation. Like we had apple picking, we've had, I know it was an issue, we had like a UCLA Yield event, and it was like 1.5 miles off the metro. So we had to like scramble to figure out how to get our volunteers to the event, because we had volunteers who wanted to go, and talk to prospective UCLA students about how awesome being a Bruin is, but getting them out there to, I think it was like a Marriott that was a mile and a half off the metro was a little bit more challenging. So we have to coordinate and be cognizant when we go out. And usually if we do go out, we don't go out too far.
Given that you have what appears to be a really successful social media project going, it's got to attract the attention of people who have their own agendas. How do you manage that and control it?
So we make sure anything outward facing, we don't, I don't put my personal email on there. We do have, we'll put an email for the network that goes to me into the vice president, or we have an email, we'll put, I don't think the Alumni Association loves it, but we have outward facing emails for all of our stuff, for our brunch club, for our social sports, for every sort of major thing we have an outward facing email so no one's sort of information is compromised. And we do get a lot of solicitations don't you want to come to the Washington Redskins game and we'll sell you a group package of this, and we get a lot of those, so we have to kind of be careful screening through all that and see what actually gets to our board.
What you can also do is, so I set up the Pittsburgh account since I live in Pittsburgh just to kind of see what messages we're getting, and you can set it up so that the administrator is the only one that can approve messages that get posted on your board. So someone can do a message, but it can't post until the administrator approves the message to get on the board. So a lot of times we get stuff where people are doing stuff that are self-serving, like you mentioned, and we'll delete it or we just won't let it post on the board. So what you might want to look at is if you have a page set up or if you're thinking of setting up a page, you have someone or a couple people that are administrators, and you can add people as administrators and they monitor the content that's on the page.
And we'll talk more about all of this stuff as we go through the presentation.
Correct.
You guys are great. The stuff you guys put out there. My question is, who does it? What's your structure? Do you have, is it a board member, committee?
We do have a comm person who is an administrator of our page. I do a lot of it. We have a couple people who do it, but a lot of what we use something like Hootsuite, which you can pre-schedule a lot of these messages. So you don't have to be at your computer at 8 a.m. to send out that message. You can pre-schedule it to be going out. I like to do things 8 a.m. on a Monday and schedule it for 8 p.m. on a Tuesday and then at noon on Thursday, just so there are different times of day, so different people are looking at things. And I don't have to be there to do it. So we'll pre-schedule a lot of stuff, and then for a live event, we'll be more is Elizabeth Therzai, or who's gonna post it, or I'm not gonna be at that event, can you take a picture and send it to me so we can post it later, and such. So, we try to stagger times and stuff. I'm not a social media expert, but it's from our feedback, people seem to like it when we post more often, and Facebook does a pretty good job of filtering out repetitive things too. So,
jumping to the next example, Boston. I know Janice is in here somewhere. Okay, make my way over there. So, Boston, kind of like DC, another network that I work with, does a great job of not just on Twitter tweeting things out, but before the event, but also tweeting live at the event, so that people.
That's my favorite thing. It's a live tweeting stuff.
So I'm going to let Janice talk about that a little bit.
So I have a personal Twitter account, and then I also have access to our network Twitter account. And often I will, while I'm at the event, take pictures, live tweet what we're doing. We have an annual Pac12 Pub Crawl, and I will live tweet, or someone from our network will live tweet where we are, so people can find us. I find that it's engaging. I don't know how many people who actually follow us or actually part of the network, but it just broadens our scope so that people know that we're around. But it's something that I personally like to do, and I recommend finding somebody who likes doing these things to really get involved to it.
Penny, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So how'd that, because we're West Side's doing our first all Pac-12 Pub Crawl in
Yep.
March. How was that? How successful?
Oh, we've been doing it for well over 10 years, and it's very well attended.
Okay. So how many people do you really get per school?
Oh, that's a different issue. For UCLA, we will normally get 20 to 25 people. ASU will bring in normally around the same number. SC will bring in about 10. Stanford, sometimes will have 5. Cal, if they can actually advertise it, they usually bring in about 20, 25 people. So, yeah.
Ours is a lot smaller.
Okay.
In Houston, but it's more like 20 to 25 people total from all
I
12
think
schools.
Houston was the one that I saw.
Yeah. I'm happy to talk with you after
Yeah,
about
that would be
Yeah, our next one is scheduled for, I think it's late April.
And one of the reasons why this is great to do, because when you tweet, and a lot of you, if I'm using terms you don't understand, you can talk to me or Brandy about it later. When you tweet at UCLA Alumni, the message gets expanded to a bigger crowd. So if someone's not following the Boston alumni, but you tweet at UCLA Alumni, and then Brandy or whoever's running the account retweets it, that message, that picture, that goes out to the whole audience that's following UCLA Alumni. So what we've done a lot of times is someone may live in Boston and be a Bruin, but not know about this account, but they're following UCLA Alumni, and once they see this, not only do they start following it, but they start coming out to events and participating as well.